Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, and this is a great broadcast tonight. And I am joined by my co-host, David Levin. How you doing, David?
Doing all right. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm doing all right, and I'm welcome to my mentor, Tony DeMarico, for whom I've known 40 years. And Tony and I go back, like I said, 40 years. And Tony's, I've actually worked with, he was in South Florida at a period of time when he worked with the Hollywood Sun-Tatler, moved on to the Miami Herald. And Tony, why don't you give the audience an overview of some of the places that you've worked and how much you've covered the sport of baseball through the years?
Oh, wow. This is going to take a while. Yeah, no, I started covering spring training there when I was at the Miami Herald. That would be the mid-'80s. And spring training, as well as Florida State League baseball, as you remember, or days with the Fort Lauderdale Yankees. Bucky Dent as a manager, Stump Merrill as a manager.
Oh yeah.
There were. Then from there, I just kind of got the bug. Baseball was always my favorite sport. And after covering spring training, the Yankees were there at that point, obviously, at Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
And the Rangers were still there. They were in Pompano. So,
right.
And the Orioles were still in Miami, which I didn't venture down there that much, but especially at night in that old stadium. But, I just kind of got the bug. That was the sport I wanted to cover, and I got a chance to cover the Texas Rangers as a beat writer in 1987. That's when I went there. 7 years there covering the Rangers, and then 4 years as a beat writer, 3 years more of a national baseball writer position. And then some team got started in Colorado, and they were drawing like 4 million fans. And, so I got lured to the Denver Post at that point, 94, to cover the early, the Blake Street Bomber Rockies, which is pretty fun for a few years there. And 7 years at the Denver Post, and on to NBCSports.com for about 12 years. And then a couple years at something called Fan Rag, which didn't last all that long, but it was out there for a few years, and then that's pretty much been it. So, like 33 years.
Now I got to tell you,
maybe 35 if you count the spring training years at the Miami Herald.
Tell you,
yep, long time.
Got to tell you a funny story, David. The first team I ever covered regularly was the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, and what was so interesting about it was I asked Tony, "Are any of these guys going to come back next year?" And Tony gives me this candid look. He said, "Well, Scott, the objective of this thing is they're not supposed to come back. They're either supposed to go up or they're going to get cut." And that's when I finally realized that. I mean, listen, Tony had a good demeanor about him, with me being a pop.
One exception, you had Rex Hudler. You got to tell the Rex Hudler.
Oh, yeah.
What's the exception?
Rex Hudler.
Right.
The Rex dog. Oh, nice.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if you know his story, but he was a multi-sport star in Southern California. He got a football scholarship offer from Notre Dame, but the Yankees drafted him in the first round. So he skipped Notre Dame and he signed with the Yankees. Mm-hmm. So they kept, but he was a little raw as a player at that point. And anyway, since he was a first round draft choice, they just kept giving him chance after chance after chance. He was in Fort Lauderdale for parts of 4 seasons at the Class A level, which is pretty rare. You don't get that chance anymore, and he probably wouldn't have if he hadn't been a first-round draft choice that they gave a lot of money to. But anyway, so that's how his career got started. So he's kind of the exception to that Class A rule. You get a year, maybe 2 years, and then they move you up or they move you out. But Rex got 4 chances, and he's I still see him around a little bit. He's obviously he's still broadcasting Royals. Right. We can still go back and talk about those Fort Lauderdale Yankee days.
Well, I'll tell
they
you,
had some good players come through there. Jose Rijo. And,
oh yeah.
There was a whole cast of Roberto Kelly. A lot of big league players that came through that organization at that point.
Yeah, I actually saw Rex Hudler.
I interrupted your story, Scott. Go ahead.
Oh, what's that?
I interrupted your story.
Oh, I don't care. No, it's no big deal. You're all right there. What do you want? We both covered the Yankees, the baby Yankees. But I remember I bumped into Rex Hudler a couple of years ago at Comerica Park when the Royals were there. And I'll tell you what, when you talk about the history, like you said, you have Bucky Dent. I worked with Stump Merrill, and it was just unreal. Kevin Rand was always one of my favorite people. So without a doubt,
he went on to the Tigers. And,
yeah.
A lot of people graduated to the big leagues from there.
Well, either you got cut, you got promoted, or you got traded. And, of course, remember, Rex Hudler ripped George Steinbrenner. Then again, a lot of them did. But it's safe to say Rex did pretty well. But, no, you know my story. Come on, Tony.
Yeah, he wrote him a letter, and he said, give me a chance. Move me up. This was when he was in Double-A. He said, give me a chance. Let me show you what I can do at the major league level. And Steinbrenner was kind of impressed by that. So, I kind of moved him up. Gave him a shot.
Well,
yeah. One of the other guys from those who I still around is Brian Butterfield.
I saw him a few years ago.
Coaching third base with Madden with the Angels. So he's had a long career. He was another Fort Lauderdale Yankee middle infielder back then.
Well, it's funny how you say that. I bumped into Butter a few years ago on Easter when he was with the Red Sox. So, it's amazing, Tony. I keep in touch with a lot of those guys. Even though they haven't seen you forever, they always remember you. And back then, a lot of people remembered me because I was living in the clubhouse. And it was my first experience, but boy, I made a lot of great friends out of that group for sure. Now,
it's funny how you go all the way back. Those are the guys who you still remember. 40 years later, we're close to it.
Now, Tony, you've got to tell David this story. When I was at the baseball winter meetings, your old boss, Ed Playstead, wanted, Walter O'Malley to be commissioner, but there was only one little problem. He died. So what?
He had already died, yeah. Yeah, that didn't go well. Right.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, so tell everybody the experiences you had at Playstead.
I don't remember what year that was, but yeah,
1981.
That he wrote, yeah.
1981.
Oops.
Yeah, come on, Tony. It's my responsibility to remember this stuff, man. It is.
Did you say 1981?
Yeah, that was my first baseball winter meetings.
I'm just going to shut up. I'm not going to say a word.
No, it's okay, whatever. I'm sure you probably will. But yeah, 81 was my first.
I was 10.
I figured that. Then maybe you ought to. That's okay, David.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never.
And I was living in Miami, actually. So.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it was an unbelievable. I never thought I'd see Ed Playstead dominate the baseball winter meetings. So boy, did he get laughed at over at the Diplomat Hotel. That's for sure. And yeah, Tony ended up working with him. So, and I actually went there to cover.
I'll say this though. That thank God for that guy, because when I was working at the first two jobs that I had, I was in another small paper in Naples, and then I came over to Hollywood. I was covering news stories, city council meetings, all this kind of crap. And I was like, I hated it. So I went into Playstead's office, and he knew who I was. The newsroom wasn't that big, so he obviously knew who I was.
Right.
News writer, and I just said, please, let me cover some high school football games, anything that you need. I'll do it on my own. You don't have, you don't have to pay me anything extra. I'm obviously getting paid by the paper anyway. So, but just send me out to do some sports. And he said, okay, we'll use you. I said, fine, perfect. So then, 8 months later, the Miami Herald hired me. So I guess I got off to a pretty good start. So yeah. So thanks. So Ed, we can say what we want about him here, but thanks. Yeah, I still owe him that one.
Yeah, well, you know what? Ironically, after you left, I did work with him, covered some high school football. At that time, I was working for the Hell Nail Digest, but Peter Brinson, my boss, allowed me to go over there to do high school football. So, wasn't a bad experience, but we had to talk about the early beginnings, the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, my learning curve. David's been wondering, what kind of a student was I, Tony, back then when I didn't know nothing? I know he's been riding me about this and anxious to get it, right, David?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm going to be nice. I'll just say he was a very enthusiastic learner.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Good.
I'll take it.
That's good.
That's good.
You should.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen. Everybody has to.
Yeah, there are many. A lot of people. He wanted it bad. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, now 40 years later, I'm still in it, going insane. But love the microphone action, though. I will tell you, after a while, you can write for 40 some odd years. You get tired of doing when I have to. But
you're not the motor mouth for nothing.
Motor City Mad Mouth, yeah, Motor Mouth. That's it. I don't care. Call me any motor you want. It's a beautiful thing, bro. Especially when we hooked up in Arizona. So, all right, now that we got onto a lot of the old history, David, why don't you ask Tony a bunch of questions, and I'll go ahead and contribute along the way as well.
Okay. I'm enjoying this banter back and forth, guys. I mean, really. Okay. So, Scott's now telling me that I need to work, so here we go. Tony, it's good to meet you. I know that a lot has happened in the last couple of hours since we were doing our pregame prep here. It looks like the possibility of a major league season is dwindling faster than the sand through the hourglass. And I never thought I'd make a Days of Our Lives reference in anything having to do with sports, but my mother's going to be proud of me. So anyway, are you surprised that, number one, it's gotten to this point, and number two, did you expect the players to, and I'm calling it a surrender because all this was really a work stoppage. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I'd say yes or no as far as being surprised. The acrimony between the two sides has been building. They never really get along anyway. But Seelig had a way of making things work. But Manfred's a little different. He's got a mandate from owners to, cut expenses, increase revenues, this, that, and the other thing. He's just not. He's not going to bend, and these players aren't going to bend. So yeah, I don't know where the solution comes, to be honest, at this point. Yeah, I'm sure there eventually will be one. I'd have to say it's less than 50% that they're going to play this year. That'd be my. And it's not extinct. I mean, it's probably still 30-40% chance. It's possible, but someone's going to have to cave here. So. And I don't know. I also know that there's some owners who I don't really think want to play. To be honest with you, some of these teams that really do need the gate revenue and the ticket sales and all that. There are some teams that, there's a lot of teams out there who they can make their payroll just by the TV revenue. They don't need to sell one ticket. But there are other teams, smaller market teams, that that's not the case. So they really need to play with fans. But since that's not the case. So I think there are at least a handful of teams that probably, wouldn't mind not playing. Let's put it that way. Even though no one's ever going to say that. They can't. Nobody can say that. But
I cover the Marlins for a living, so I understand about the small payroll and the revitalization of the team, and they need money at the gate, and there's no doubt about it. They're still dealing with the fact that this is the last year of their television contract. Those small, and I call it a small market team, but it's more a small budget team because it's Miami. I don't want to call Miami a small market.
Yeah,
but those teams are just going to get destroyed by this.
Yep. Right.
If they do play, how many games do you think we get put?
Just by looking at the the calendar, they've been insisting on playing the playoffs as scheduled right now. Starting in the season ends at the end of September and the playoffs start right away in early October. So just by looking at the calendar, it's going to take. And let's say they somehow agree by the end of this week, then you got to get everybody to a training site. Well, I guess they're going to get their home stadiums, I guess. But either way, got to get. Some people are there's probably a lot of players back home in Puerto Rico or wherever. So it's going to take them a few days to get there, and then you need 3 weeks of spring training. So you're looking at mid-July, and so then you got 9 or 10 weeks to the end of September.
Right.
So at the most, you could play something in the 60s, maybe 62 games. You miss 100, play 62 maybe. That's about as much as you can fit in because they're going to have a couple off days in there too. You can't play every single day. So that's the most you can fit in by the end of September.
You said that it's not dead in the water, and I'm the ultimate optimist with this because I love, as I told you beforehand, I love the game of baseball. I cover football as well. Watching football on TV is a lot easier for me. I want to be at the game and watch the game. The baseball being played. I want to watch strategy. I want to feel.
Yeah, it's better live. Yep.
It's so amazing live. If they were to get 60 games, let's say they get 60, and I'll use that just as a ballpark number.
Okay. That's the ballpark, right?
Should there be an asterisk to the season because you're not going to see records? Somebody could hit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this
see
is
a picture
this is
with
the asterisk of all. This is the asterisk of all asterisks. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just not going to be anything like this. So that's the downside. You're not going to get the full season. All that kind of stuff. If you want, you just said you're the optimist. Here's my optimistic side of this thing.
Okay.
With this short of the season, there's really no, at least at the start of it, there's no reason for anybody, even a bad team, to go in there and try to, basically tank like some teams have been doing in recent years. We won't mention any names, but why not? You only have 2 months. What if you get off to a good start? What if you're the Marlins and the rotation's not that bad? What if those guys are pitching really well and they get off to a 20-10 start somehow? Not impossible, right?
They started
then all of a sudden they're halfway through the season.
Yeah.
They're halfway through the season, and they would have a shot at a playoff spot. So I think something like that will, if they ever do figure it out, I think there'll be at least one team, maybe a couple teams like that, who will just, I don't want to say come out of nowhere, but a team that's kind of projected right now to be 500-ish or maybe below, who just gets hot and it's a short season and, boom, 6 games and they're 36-24 and they're a wild card game all of a sudden, I don't think it's impossible. I could give you 4 or 5 teams I think, could pull that off. So that's my option side of it.
Well, I like it. This has been something that I've been watching every day because I have to for work, but it's also something that interests me. The Major League office and the owners are on one side, the Players Association is on the other. Tony Clark is their voice, their mouthpiece and whatnot. And to me, it's back and forth like a tennis match. One of those marathon sessions. Does this mean if they don't get a season together, there's going to be a strike next year? Because it really is all about the money for the players. I mean, can we see that?
Well, this season is really the exception of all exceptions. They're arguing about what they're arguing about right now is this season. They can't figure out how to divide up the projected revenue. So really, everything that's going on now is they're only arguing about this season. So I think there will be a next season. However, the collective bargaining agreement expires after the 21 season. So, all of next season, it's going to, then you're going to be focused on all the longer term issues. We'll be past this, this crazy supposed season that we might have. 21 is just going to be, I think we'll be back to sort of normal, except that, these sides they're really at odds with each other. This isn't just negotiating ploys. They really don't like each other. They really think each side is dealing in bad faith. And, I've been through, I don't sound like the old guy here, but I am. But, I've seen this before. This happened, the same scenario, different set of circumstances. But this is what led to the 94 strike. So, it's the same thing. The sides hate each other. They won't negotiate. They talk through the media. It's all the same. It's even worse now because the media is, there's so much more media with social media. So, there's a horrible atmosphere between the two sides. And, it's going to take a while to work out that next collective bargaining agreement. I can tell you that.
Definitely. Let me ask you this. Let me see how I want to word this properly. So it's going to be 2 questions that become one. The NFL is still making plans to play football on time. And at some point in the next few weeks, players are going to be on the field practicing. The NBA is planning for their playoffs down in Orlando. The NHL has put together a fairly decent program to finish with their playoff season. Why does Major League Baseball...
Right.
I'm sorry?
Golf is already back.
Right, but I'm saying golf is back. NASCAR's back. Why isn't Major League Baseball getting this? I mean, it's easy.
Right.
It really is. Why is their ego bigger than everybody else?
I mean, both sides absolutely know what they're doing to them, what they're doing to themselves and to the game. I mean, they know what they're admitting it. Manfred said it today. This is a disaster. I think was his quote. Saw something from Eric Hosner, same thing. You know, we know what we're doing to the game. You know, but they're not. Neither side's backing down. It's you know, they're both sides are arrogant. Both sides are greedy. Both sides think everybody's just going to come right back when this thing ends. But you know, I don't know. Not everybody's going to come back. I would say they're going to lose 20% of fans are just going to say, "Screw it, I'm not coming back for a while."
It's hard.
It's just a number. I think it's somewhere in that range.
When you look back at '94 and how that came about, where they stopped playing in August, and there was no baseball. I'm sorry.
No postseason. Yeah, it was
nothing.
That was horrible.
Remember, it took a good 3 or 4 years for people to become more comfortable. Granted, Cal Ripken helped that, and the home run chase helped that.
Yep.
How much of a
Cal helped it, and then the steroids kicked it in.
Right. Yeah. Well, but at the time, it worked. How big of a black eye is this going to be for Major League Baseball moving forward?
I think this is worse. I really do. Just because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's just a lot of people are just going to say, "Screw these millionaires." You know, what's the unemployment rate right now? 20% or whatever it is.
Close to that. Yeah.
This is not the time to be arguing over billions of dollars. It's not. So yeah, that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. You know, a lot of people are going to come back like you and, you know, me. But, you know, I got to say, you know, that I'm not really writing and I'm not active anymore. So, yeah, I'm gonna pay less attention to it. But I've been a fan for life. I'm not going to stop now. But yeah, you know what worries me. Well, what they should be really worried about is, you know, is the under 30 especially. You know, there's just not that many fans in that age group. So, you know, down the road is where, you know, you have to wonder. You know, I think the average baseball fan, I believe, is 55 years old. The average age of a baseball fan. The average age of a football or an NBA fan is in the 30s. So, you know, the writing is on the wall there. And this certainly isn't going to help any win over anything. You know, they really pissed away a great chance to grab the sport. You know, everybody's sporting interest here. They had a golden opportunity. You know, what if we had started back up on July 4th? You know, people would be fired up about baseball. Now they're just, you know.
That was supposed to be the plan.
It was a pretty good plan. It really was. They had sport world to themselves, you know, for a couple months, and yeah, you know, but they just lost the golden opportunity. Yeah, you know, I'm sure they know that, but that shows you how obstinate they are about it. So, you know, that they're letting this chance get away from them. So sooner or later, one side will have to bend, or they'll have to come. But they're arguing about, you know, like I keep saying, you know, they're arguing about this season's money. So next season they go back to where they were, which isn't in a good spot either, as far as negotiating the next basic agreement. But at least we'll go in fresh next spring, you know, into a season, which hopefully we'll be able to have fans and all that stuff. I would think so by then. But then we're still looking at a potential stoppage, you know, surrounding the next basic agreement. We'll see. But let's not go there yet.
No, I think we'll stick with what we got right this moment. But
right.
What will it
it's bad enough now.
Right. What will it take to put a Band-Aid on this, so to speak? You know, like we talked about in '94, it was really bad. We had a home run chase.
Yeah, it was, and it went into, people forget, it went into '95 too.
Right, it did. It went into exactly.
The spring of '95, if you'll remember, we had to replace the horrible replacement players. What a bad idea that was.
You know what, I forgot about that.
Got a bunch of guys off the street. They were like minor. Some teams like the Rockies paid 4 or 5 of their minor league guys extra money to you know, cross the picket line and become scabs and play in those replacement games. And the promise was that they paid them extra money. They also gave them minor league coaching jobs when their careers were over. Yep.
They weren't the only ones either.
I think a couple other things did it too, but I know the Rockies did it, and one of them is still their third base coach today. So obviously, he made a good career move because he wasn't going to make the major league player. And he got himself a long-time minor league coaching job, and now he's on now he's the third base coach for the team. So good for him. He's a great guy. That was the decision he made back then. But, a lot of guys, there were guys across the picking line, and then there were these other guys who just got him off they had been released or whatever. It was horrible, really. And they played some spring training games. And what I remember about it is, especially with the Rockies, that I was the beat writer there for the Denver Post at that point. And we had a whole spring training down there in Tucson, and then we came up. We went up to Denver right near the end of what was the normal, the regular spring training, the time frame, because they were opening. That's when they opened Coors Field. And the opening game in Coors Field was a replacement game between the Rockies and the Yankees, replacement players. That was the game that opened Coors Field. So that's when the strike got settled. So then, okay, see you later, replacement players. Then it was back to Tucson again with the real players. We had to get their 3 weeks of spring training in. So that's how crazy that season. That season didn't start until I think it was early May, and they only played 142 games. I think it was 144 games. So that season was interrupted too. So that was a bad one. That lingered into the second season. So that was bad. This one I think is worse just because of the pandemic, because of the timing of it.
It makes everything look bad. Let's crystal ball this for a minute, and this is my last question. And Scott, you got the floor. Let's say Manfred comes out and says, "I was wrong. We can't do this. It's not right. It's not baseball. We're going to table this. And we're going to pack it all in again, and we'll start with spring training in February."
Mm-hmm.
What do you
that
do?
could very well happen.
I think it will now. But what do you do to smooth over the communication between the owners and the players? Because at some point, somebody's either going to back down or get paid. It's one or the other.
Right. Well, I think it'll, as I said, it's going to revert back to this is an anomaly. All that's going on is a total anomaly. What they're arguing about now is this money for this season. Next season, we go back to basically where we were, which they have issues. They really do. The sides really they can't communicate. They can't get along. They each bash the other in the media. This is classic, leading to a strike kind of or work stoppage kind of a situation. But at least they have a year to. What they're arguing about now is the players just won't accept the fact that the owners agreed to pay them, the full prorated salary. Back in March, when it was an 82-game season, you get half your salary. But then the owners came back and said, no, now we got to negotiate that down further. And the players they're not going to budge for that. That's what this is about. But next spring, we go back to the old collective, the last year of the current bargaining agreement, and they'll fight about the issues. But, I think they'll have a long enough lead time to get it done.
I know that
it'll be a different set of circumstances to worry and argue about. But I think they'll be able to reach an agreement. Because they might be facing a different baseball. The problem is that they're both going to have to come to this realization. They might not, even next year when fans return, I don't think the same amount of fans are going to return. So I think the game is going to take a hit revenue-wise. They're going to have to figure out a way to, make it work. Instead of being a $10 billion a year industry as it is now, 10.4, I think with last year's, maybe it goes down a couple billion, in total revenues, and they'll have to work under some new circumstances for the whole game of baseball.
One last thing, and then Scott, you can have it because I just thought about this.
Sure.
We had talked about this off air. Minor League Baseball has been destroyed by this. There's no games. They want to talk about the 30-man active roster and the taxi squad. These prospects who were ready to take the leap this year aren't going to get to.
Yeah.
How far back?
Everything got pushed back. Yep.
I'm going to use the word, Scott. I'm sorry. How much crap, with all this crap, has hurt the minor leagues, and will they be able to recover?
Yeah, it's going to be in case you forgot everything, they were already trying to disband about 40 minor league teams anyway. Just cut out at least one level of the minor leagues. So yeah, so they were already looking at doing that anyway, and that is going to happen now for sure. Organizations that go AAA, AA, maybe only 2 A teams, maybe 1 or 2 rookie teams. So there'll be 1 or 2 fewer minor league teams for every team. So that's already going to hurt minor league baseball. But yeah. But I think after that, I think it could come back. I don't see why in the cities that still have it.
I really hope so.
Right. They're going to have to have fans. So obviously, we're going to have to be able to get fans back in there next season.
Right.
That is the lifeblood of minor league baseball.
The Marlins lose a summer short season team in Batavia, and they would lose their low Class A team in Clinton, Iowa.
Those guys,
by the way, won the league championship last
year.
Away. Yeah,
that's going to go away. It's going to go away. Maybe what will happen is there'll be a rise of independent ball in some of the cities that lose teams. That would be the replacement. And frankly, if I'm living in Clinton, Iowa, I don't care. The main priority of the Clinton Marlins or whatever their name is to develop players. Which doesn't necessarily mean they're trying to win there in Clinton, even though apparently they did last year. But maybe if you have an independent team in there, the whole objective of that would be to win games immediately for the Clinton team, not worry about developing Marlins players. So maybe it would be better for independent ball, is what could happen. And the teams, and I think college baseball is going to get a boost from this once
it will.
It's able to return. Because college baseball is pretty good, man. It's something equivalent to high A baseball, I think. And I really enjoy it. I thought last year, was my first year of kind of being basically retired and not an active ball writer. And I went to the College Baseball World Series for the first time. That was fantastic, man. I really enjoyed myself. Great caliber of baseball. Great. Felt like going to a football bowl game or something, but it was a baseball tournament. It was really cool. And I think there'll be more interest in college baseball if there are fewer minor league teams, which there are going to be fewer minor league teams by a big chunk. Probably about 20% of the minor league teams are toast.
Scott, you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm just absorbing everything you guys have to say. So, all right, Tony, this part of the broadcast that yours truly here gets to fire away, and also Candy wants to ask you a question or two too. So I'm going to let Candy go ahead and ask you a few questions before I take over.
So we're going to throw in a curveball. We're putting a female on here.
Okay, let's see you breaking stuff. What do you got?
So obviously, Tony, we all know I'm a Brewers fan. And I read an interesting article that talked about if somehow there is a season, and let's say it's 40, 50, 60 games, it doesn't matter, but they are saying that there are a couple of Brewers that might sit out the season because one of the players was on the cusp. It's one of those contract years, and he's not a everyday player, and in the 60-game season, there's not enough games for him to get enough reps in that he would be able to benefit from it. And then they talked about Christian Yelich, who had an injury the end of September last year, and maybe that would be rushing him, and maybe we really should sit him down for the year. And they also talked about Lorenzo Cain. And those are two of our big name players. As a fan, how do you think we should react if there is a season and all of that? Who are they playing with then?
Every team's in different situations, but those are three really interesting cases. Yeah, these are the kind of situations players and teams are going to be facing. I don't know if I'm the first guy. I think that is that it not playing at all certainly isn't going to help this case any. So I don't know. I think I would play it as him because he's going to go into free agency.
But if he doesn't play,
that's really dumb. But,
Tony, if he doesn't play at all, is there anything that says that he redoes his year next year, and his contract is extended by a year because he didn't play?
Yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, maybe that's another whole can of worms that could be opening here if they don't play this season.
That's a great question, Candy.
I told you I was going to.
I don't have the answer to that. It's just
I told you I was going to throw you a curveball.
Yeah, that's a good one. There are a lot of players probably in that situation.
That might have been a knuckleball.
Like a Yelich, I don't know. You certainly can't mess with the franchise guy. If you can't play, you can't play.
Well, but, you don't want to rush him back.
I go back to hopefully you start the season and you get hot and your season is it's a sprint now. It's not a marathon. It's a sprint. You can get hot. I'll just throw out a team like the Reds or they got 3 really good starting pitchers, a lot of good young players. People think they're going to be better. They might get off to a really good start, and boom, they win that division. So I wouldn't want to go into this season thinking of tanking or of not trying to win. If you ever have a chance to, everybody has a chance to make the playoffs this season. Really, pretty much everybody. Maybe there's a couple teams that can't, but there's probably 10 more. Reds, White Sox, Blue Jays got a bunch of good young players. Maybe they all start clicking early. A team like the Angels, maybe they should be better. There's several teams that weren't that close last year, but if they get off to a good start this year, boom, they can find themselves in the playoffs. So I think teams are going to try. This should be a non-tanking season is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Because it's a sprint. It's a sprint to the finish.
Well, and you were alluding to earlier that there are some teams that, like the small market teams, that are going to be really hurt without fans in the stands. And I can tell you the Milwaukee Brewers are one of them. That's not a TV market.
Their TV contract is really low.
Right.
As I remember, unless they got a new one. So yeah, they are one of those teams that's really way more dependent on tickets and revenue and selling overpriced beers and all that, than say, even the Rockies, they got really good TV contracts. They get $150 million a year from their that's their payroll.
Mm-hmm.
They cover their payroll without opening the gates.
Right.
So they're in a little bit better position. But the Brewers would definitely be one. The Royals, their TV contract isn't very big because their market's so small. So yeah, they would be another one.
How many years, if they don't play it this year, how long do you think it's going to take them to rebound to get back to where they were last year?
Well, attendance has been declining anyway. The overall sports market is definitely fracturing. There's more people watching soccer and stuff like X Games and other sports. So I don't know if, we may have seen sort of a golden age come to an end here. But, not in 21, maybe 22, 23, things would be probably pretty close to where it was, unless they just keep pissing off fans too much where they stay away. That's the fear. How long does this thing go? If this season isn't played, I think most people will come back next spring and say, okay, let's see what they got. Because let's face it, this is the oddest season,
the oddest
of
year.
All time, I would say. So I would say probably maybe 90% of the people would say next spring, say, okay, we'll give them another shot here. We'll see how it goes if they settle quickly. If this drags into next season, oh man, that could be really bad. Or if, like I say, they can't agree on a new collective bargaining agreement at some point next season. Yeah, that could really hurt the game for many years, because it's already losing it's not the national pastime. It hasn't been the national pastime. And as I just said, the average baseball fan's 55. That's not a good demographic. So the longer term fate of the sport is it's it's going to have a smaller piece of the overall sports pie. I think that's just a generational thing as much as anything.
Okay, Tony, ready for me?
Sure.
All right. Well, I don't know if David touched on it, but I'm going to touch on it just to make, for no other reason, clarity purposes. Who is to blame for this lack of unification? Both sides obviously are, there's some culpability, but when you look back on this, is it the players or the owners at fault?
Well, the easy answer is both. But when it comes to this, and I want to talk about what's going on right now. The owners agreed on one thing in March, and that was the prorated salary thing that I just talked about. They said however many games are played, you'll get 100%. You'll get you play 81 games, you get half your salary. And that was agreed upon. That was collectively bargained when the shutdown happened in March. Now they come back 2 months later and say, "Oh, wait a minute, no fans in the stands. Oh, we got to renegotiate something that was already collectively bargained 2 months ago." That's what really has ticked off the players. And just on that point, I have to agree with the players.
Okay.
I do.
All right. So with that said, news just came out over the weekend that the baseball and Turner Sports came to an agreement, and that certainly wasn't going to win any sympathy points at all for the players, was it? Now that you've got several $1 million involved with just Turner by itself. I'm not counting ESPN. I'm not counting Fox.
Right. Yeah, it seems like, the owners take all that in, but then they want the players to take less than what was already agreed upon. That part of it, I'm with the players on that.
Okay. Well, one of the biggest trades that occurred during the off season, I'm actually wondering if they'll ever put a uniform on, although I did see him in spring training. That guy is Mookie Betts of the Dodgers. How about all that? The Dodgers gave up a lot of capital to get Mookie Betts and David Price, and Mookie may not even play at all. So I'm kind of wondering.
He might not play as a Dodger.
Right.
Because he's a free agent after this year. And that's the thing. Is this going to count as a year, or is it not? Or if they don't play at all? That's a great question. I would say it's probably not going to count, but I don't know.
Yeah.
This has never happened before. Uncharted territories.
Yeah. How does service time work, Tony? The service time accrued during actual playing games, or in this particular case, it's the...
I think what they agreed upon is you were going to get, no matter how many games they played this year, this was in March when they agreed upon several things. That agreement was you get as many games as you played last year.
Okay. Yeah, well...
That was assuming games were going to be played.
Right.
Right. So what happens if no games are played? That's another can of worms.
I mean, the Dodgers gave up a lot to get Betts and David Price.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, those Dodger fans at Dodger Stadium aren't going to see Betts. And again, I don't even think they're allowed to play baseball anyways in Southern California, because I know things are pretty rough.
There won't be any fans there, that's for sure.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, so, Dodger fans, I hate to say that Mookie Betts wasn't even a rental. He may not even play for you at all, although, David Price is
I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen. I guess the only fair thing would be to give him a year with the Dodgers next year.
Yeah.
They don't play at all this year. If they play 50 games this year, that's it. That's what's going to count as his year with the Dodgers. Then he can go somewhere else. But if he doesn't play at all this year, I don't think it'd be fair to the Dodgers, who traded, Verdugo and a couple other pretty good prospects to get him. So I would think he'd get another year there. But we'll see. We'll come to that bridge. Or we'll get to that bridge when we come to it.
Well, if indeed that bridge we come,
they don't play at all.
If indeed we get to that bridge, the Boston Red Sox must be laughing pretty hard that they unloaded Mookie Betts and got the people that
they weren't going to sign him. They weren't going to sign him anyway.
Right, that's my point.
he was out of there what they wanted to do with their budget. So now, see, that's the other thing, man. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But baseball was a $10.4 billion gross revenue industry last year. Been all around $10 billion for the last several years. What if that goes down to 7.5 next year, or something like that? That's going to obviously affect free agent salaries and stuff like that. So a guy like Mookie, he might really take a hit by not having signed a big contract already. Although you can't blame him. Who knew? But yeah, that could hurt his market value. Just may not be that much money in the game.
So then if I were Mookie Betts, I'd stay with the Dodgers for a year and see what happens. But then again, I'm not Mookie Betts. I'm not making it.
Sign a 1 year with them, and then they call that a pillow contract.
Right.
You sign a 1 year, and then you go back into free agency. You reset your value, so to speak. So yeah, you can always stay with the Dodgers too, and they're gonna pay him. So they can afford him.
With that said, do you think that there could be a lot more one-year contracts signed as a result of this unprecedented year?
Seems like it. Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's kind of a crapshoot with a lot of players. If you sit out a whole year, let's just say they don't play. Let's go on that premise. If you're 36 years old, 35 years old, you didn't play a whole season. No team is going to give you a longer-term contract after you sat out a whole season. You're going to have to reprove yourself. That could happen to a lot of players.
Yeah, so I think we're looking at a potential trend. All right, you guys alluded to the colleges. I want to go in more detail with it. Okay, obviously a lot of college players. I don't know if are they going to get their eligibility back next year for spring sports? So
yeah, that was already decided. The guys who were, they got another year if they wanted to come back.
So they
of course, you got drafted and everything, then you wouldn't. But you can come back.
So what are your thoughts about that? You got them coming back, and then you also have the potential recruits coming in, and therefore your roster sizes.
College baseball will be better.
Yeah, it's unreal, isn't it?
Like I said, I went to the World. I watched a lot of the leading up to last year's World Series, knowing that I was going to it in Omaha, and I really enjoyed it. I thought the caliber of baseball was great, and the only potential black mark could be that if at least for this season it's going to happen. The big revenue driver, of course, everybody knows this is college football, and into big schools it's college basketball too. Yeah. So if they're not having fans this year, there's not going to be as much money in all these athletic departments, at least for a year or two. So that could hurt some. It's not going to hurt a University of Michigan baseball program, but some MAC school or some school like that, they might not be able to play the kind of baseball season they want to play. The budget's going to go way down. So we'll see about that. But I just think it's becoming. These college baseball programs are pretty advanced. They have great coaching, and they have all the big schools. They have all the best facilities and all that kind of stuff, better than certainly any Class A team probably has. Not so much Double A or Triple A, but the lower minors. So I think some kids. I think there's going to be a percentage of kids will go to college or stay in college, and I think college baseball might grow here.
Well, believe it or not,
growing popularity among fans.
Believe it or not, I was over at Wake Forest University last year for the National Sports Media Association convention. We saw some of the high-tech stuff there. It was just unbelievable when I saw there. All right, so the future. Let's talk about the future of the MLB draft. This year, Tony, we saw 5 rounds, and of course, then they're getting signed the undrafted players. How do you view the current state of the MLB draft? What were your thoughts about the 5 rounds and the undrafted?
I think they wanted to cut it anyway. I don't think it'll ever be 40 rounds again. But as we went back to what we were talking about earlier, they're cutting at least 1, maybe 2 teams, 2 minor league affiliates from every, all 30 teams. So they're going to need fewer minor league players, obviously. So, the draft will be maybe 25 rounds, I would think, 30 going forward. This year, obviously, is a total, again, it's the exception to all exceptions. Why draft 20 players when there's no minor league season anywhere? Well, what are you going to do with them? You know, just let them go back to college. Or you can sign these, sign some guy for $20,000 who wants to, maybe some local kid in the Denver area who really wants to play with the Rockies, and you can sign right now for 20. That's all it is, $20,000. But at least you can pick the team. This is the only time a lot of these players will ever get the you ever get to pick what team you get to sign with. Instead of being drafted. So some people might take advantage of that. But again, they won't be able to play until like fall instructional league. Hopefully, we will have fall instructional and the Arizona Fall League. But there's really nothing fun to do until then.
That's true. There is a real domino effect. All right. Well, let's talk about a college. Obviously, in your backyard. Actually, when we were out there, Candy and I were out there. We took a ride by Phoenix Municipal Stadium. Back then, I actually saw some games. When they were the AAA affiliate, I believe it was with the Giants and then the A's.
Yeah.
But at that time, right. When I was there, I believe it was in 80s.
Yeah, now that team is in Vegas. The A's AAA team is in Vegas.
Right. So with that said, the Detroit Tigers took Spencer Torkelson out of Arizona State University. Yep. For those Tiger fans listening to the broadcast, what kind of a player is Spencer Torkelson, and will he be a huge impact for Detroit?
I think so. I think he's a pretty good number one pick. He's not like a Ken Griffey Jr. or something like that, but he's he's got, I would say Pete Alonso. I'm not saying he's going to hit 45 homers right away, but similar kind of size, Goldschmidt, that kind of the right-handed power hitter. When he pulls it, he pulls it a long way, but he also has right center power. He hits a lot of balls to right center, kind of like Goldschmidt does. You can see him play a lot. And, his defense, there's mixed opinions on it. He played first, but, Tigers drafted him as a third baseman. He had played some other positions, other infield positions at Arizona State before they moved him to first base, like in his sophomore year. So, I don't know, but so some say you don't draft the first baseman first overall. There's a theory about that, but it does make sense. But if he's going to hit you 35 homers, and he looks like he hits for average too. So that's a pretty good. That's good. That's really good production for a top pick. So I'm sure the Tigers would be thrilled with that if he gives them that down the road. And to me, like I said, Pete Alonso is pretty similar comp, I would say.
Well, I know you and I both grew up with the old English D in our system because we're from the Detroit area. So, with that, even though you've traveled around, obviously been associated with other teams later on in your career. With that said, okay, the Tigers have been drafting quite high. They've had a few tough years. How does the outlook look for the Detroit Tigers? I know Dave Dombrowski, and this will be a two-part question. Give me the outlook about what Tiger fans have to look for. Do you think they're much closer to turning the corner, or how many years would you give them?
3 or 4.
Would you?
Yeah. They have no position players who are any good longer term. Name me one guy who's going to be on the team in 3 or 4 years, position player-wise, of the guys who played last year. Maybe he's got 3 more years. He's in rapid decline. There's really... However, they got those 3 or 4 young starting pitchers who are probably going to break in. They may even break in this year. We'll see. But, that's obviously what they've been trying to do. Build a new staff. Hopefully this will be the next Morris, Petrie, and, Waltero group coming. They're certainly drafted highly. Casey Mize and Rick Manning's nephew, I think it is. And there's a left-handed kid. There's 3 really highly rated starting pitchers.
Right.
Torkelson will be there in 2 or 3 years. But they still need a ton of position players. So I'd say 3 years minimum.
Well,
4 years maybe.
One guy.
They went for it all. They traded away a lot of picks. That's Dave Dombrowski's MO. It's what he's done everywhere. It does work. he came pretty darn close. They just couldn't win a World Series, but
Right.
they should have. They should have beaten the Cardinals. 06, Jesus. They should have won that game. So they should have had one title at least.
Oh, yeah.
They got the Bucks by the Giants in the what was it, 12? I think it was 12. So, yeah, they didn't win that one. But, you know, they came close, and they had a great era of, you know, pretty much a decade-long run. Just didn't quite win the big one. So, yeah, now, you know, there's always a price to pay for something like that, especially in a market where they're not going to have a $300 million payroll. You know, they just can't.
Right.
So, yeah, it's going to take them a long time. It just is.
Ironically, when Max Scherzer left, the pick that they got was Christian Stewart. So I'd be curious to see how Christian plays out. So
yeah, he could
seems-
be okay. I'm not sure he has a position. We'll see, but you know, it looks like he can hit a little.
All right, you talked about Dave Dombrowski. I'm glad you brought him up, Tony.
You should get Pat Caputo on. He could tell you a lot better on the Tigers than I can.
Oh, I know, but I had to get a hometown opinion. I'll try to see if I can reach out to him. I got Lynn Henning if I need a hometown opinion. I know.
Or Lynn Henning. Yeah, there you go. They could do a lot better job than I just.
Oh, it doesn't matter. You know what? It is what it is. We're two hometown guys that grew up with the team.
They're there all the time, so they know.
No problem. Well, I'll get Lynn on.
Always go to the beat writer. If you want to know what's really going on, you know, go to the beat writer.
Okay. Well, with that said, let me ask.
Or a columnist in that town who's, you know, always around the team, like a Lynn Henning or a Caputo.
Yeah, Lynn Henning, Tony.
Those guys are baseball guys for baseball lifer types too. So yeah, they're always at the park. And, they're plugged in still.
Yeah, Lynn Henning's on my speed dial list. Don't worry. So with that said, okay, let's go ahead and talk about Dave Dombrowski. Let go by the Red Sox recently. Okay. And obviously, we talked what he did. Do you think he ever gets another job in baseball?
Not as the GM. He's actually a president. But yeah, you know, not in that role. He could go in a role higher than that, like an ownership type of a role.
Right.
Or he could work in the commissioner's office kind of a role.
Right.
Become the next Joe Torre kind of guy. He's a smart guy. He loves the game. He's been around it his whole life. There's a lot of good things about David. He happens to be I have a good relationship with him. I'm gonna. You know, a lot of people rip him because he all he does is trade away prospects. He tries to win. That's
right.
You know, the younger generation always says, "Oh, he's trading away too many prospects. Oh, he's ruining the future." I don't really care. He's trying to win. That's what I. So I like him in that respect. That's my old school thinking coming out. But he's been around this game, his whole life. And, he's an Ivy League dude, and so he could handle a higher up role in baseball, or he could just back away and be someone's senior advisor.
Right. Right.
Just kind of step in and go evaluate some prospects. Like Gillett did that for a lot of years. Bob Gebhardt still does that with the Cardinals. Kind of a senior advisor. You really want to key down on a draft pick or a trade. Send him out there to evaluate it. So yeah, if Dave wants to stay in the game, he will land something. And if it's like in a club president role or I could see the commissioner office kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, one day we'll do a Hall of Fame show with David. However, this question came to mind. Is Jim Leyland a Hall of Fame manager?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Jim Leyland?
Yeah.
He won the title.
Actually, he won two.
I would say I would think so.
Would you? Okay. All right. Hey, listen, Tony, I hit you straight.
He won the World Series.
Yeah. Okay.
He had a lot of success.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Miami, not so much in Colorado.
Yeah, well, he got a little freaked out because of the altitude there, but
Tigers, he didn't quite win one there, but he got there a lot.
Yeah.
Great record. I don't know. Yeah, my thought would be yes.
Okay.
But he's not like a slam dunk like Bruce Bochy.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
He's a slam dunk. Three World Series. He's a slam dunk.
Okay. Good to know. All right, so I'm going to go over. So let's talk about the stadium. We've talked about contracting. There were some of teams. Now, there have been some new facilities built. The one in Northport where the Atlanta Braves moved into. They were supposed
I've done that.
Yeah.
I heard good things.
Yeah, but you know what? They were supposed to have their Florida State League team there, and Daytona obviously is going to lose theirs. So that's unfortunate because you have a brand new ballpark they could have used for Florida State League. So what are your thoughts about some of the new minor league stadiums that were built that may not indeed be able to go ahead and be used on a year-round basis?
There's always the risk you take if you're a city and you build a stadium for a team, you know, because the team's interests aren't necessarily your interests as a stadium builder. You know what I mean? They're going to come and go, and they're going to do what's best for them. And you might get stuck with the stadium that's not used. So it's happened a lot. You know, it really has, over especially these smaller towns, these spring training towns. So it does happen, but some cities think it's worth it. You know, you do get a lot of attention paid to it. The city that I live in Arizona, it's Chandler. They built a nice little park for Andy's Brewers back in the day. A nice little stadium there, a nice little complex. But they, the time came when the Brewers wanted something bigger and better, and Chandler didn't want to build it for them, so the Brewers went to Maryville. So yeah, I mean these relationships change over the years.
Yeah, I remember.
And now where there used to be the Chandler Stadium, Compadre Stadium, it was called. Now it's a housing development.
Yep.
So that's what happened.
I saw games at Compadre Stadium, and I have a pretty good history with the Brewers. It was a nice place. I loved it out there.
Yep.
In fact, their PR guy, I'm trying to remember who it was. They've had a lot of good PR people. Yeah, that's it. There you go. Thanks. At least I don't have to go ahead and draw a blank on that. He took care of me every time I went out there, and I had a contact through a guy named Andy Lascano that got me there. So, yeah, no, but Chandler was pretty neat. I really enjoyed there. Of course, the Brewers made a bigger decision. So, all right, well, since Milwaukee probably won't be getting the Brewers this year, there's another interesting team that's probably going to start up called the Milwaukee Milkmen.
Okay. What league are they going to play in?
Well, yeah, that's why I was going with this, Tony. An independent league out, I think, is it Franklin, Wisconsin, Candy? Yeah. In fact,
I think this is going to happen. I really think independent ball is going to boom. You know, they won't have any fans anyway. I don't think it'll be social distancing. It'll be a big problem. So they could stick a couple 500 fans in a little park, and fire away. You'll have a lot of available players.
And one of the
guys got released or didn't get signed because there was no draft. You know, there's a ton of players sitting out there wanting to play, other than major league players. There's a lot of other players out there who want to play, and they'd probably go do it. So that might be an interesting thing that happens. Springs up over the summer, or certainly like in the next season when all those other minor league franchises are gone. You know, those cities are still going to want to have a baseball team. So independently, here we come.
I didn't know about the Milkmen until one of our friends.
I think you should buy a franchise, Scott. I think you should run the team.
You want me to run the team? So we'll
put it together.
So what role are we going to have together, Tony? Come on.
Nah.
What?
Hey, I want in on this.
You want in? Okay, Levin, go ahead.
If we're buying a team, I want in on this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, what's your role going to be?
I think it might happen. I don't know. Senior advisor.
There you go. So, all right. Well,
that way I don't have to do anything if I don't want to.
Is that your role, Tony? Senior advisor.
Yeah, senior advisor.
Anything that gets the two of us. Anything that gets the two of us back together, no problem. So am I going to be the owner and the broadcaster?
Well,
David Levin will be the guy that issues.
If anybody could put it together, I think you could go out there and sell it. Get some investors.
That's fine.
Oh, that's too
real. Isn't being like a senior addresser kind of like being an athletic supporter?
No, like a Pat Gillick, man. Resident genius.
Resident genius.
I couldn't help it. Sorry.
Oh, come on,
Pat
Tony.
Gillick is deservedly a Hall of Famer. That guy was fantastic.
Oh, man. That was fantastic.
Baltimore, Philly, Toronto. everywhere he went, they were winners.
So, well, I'll tell you what. If you're a senior advisor of a team, then I'll let you deal with the beat writers, okay? Because you know more about the beat writers because you were one.
There won't be any newspapers by then, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's okay. That. Hey, listen, you know what? There's nothing wrong with having a hypothetical here and let our minds run amok, right, Tony? That I'll invest into a team.
Okay, so who are we going to get to be the skipper?
Who would I get to be a skipper?
I go Buck Showalter. He's a buddy of yours, isn't he?
You know what? I would put Buck Showalter all day long. He likes to build, yeah. Well, of course. Come on, Tony. By now,
old school ball guy.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about franchise builders, right? Buck Showalter.
Right. Yeah, maybe he could own the team and manage it too if he wanted to.
Well, he could. Although it's funny, I ran into him a couple of years ago, Tony.
Maybe he should be the owner
in Sarasota. Yeah. When the Tigers were down in Sarasota with the Orioles, I bumped into Buck, and we had a pretty good time. So, yeah, of course, let's have some... Huh?
Gotta have a female in there.
Oh, we gotta have a female, so Candy is nominated for the job. But, yeah...
She did.
Yeah, she did. Hey, listen...
If Wendy Seelig-Creed can do it, Candy can do it.
Candy, you want to go ahead and come back and answer that?
That's okay. I'll take it.
She'll take that praise. Come on, Tony. I mean, due respect. If I get behind the microphone, I'll want to take the broadcasting role, but we're waiting to see what David Levin will be the guy that issues the credentials, right?
Yeah, as long as I get credentials.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's think about it, Tony. The newspaper business is probably, as Ernie Harwell would say, long gone anyways. So are you glad you got out of it when you did?
Oh, yeah, me definitely. Yeah, it was time. Even before all this, as it turned out, perfect. There's nothing to write about anyway, nothing to cover that I want to cover. I covered baseball because I like covering on the field. I never enjoyed the off the field stuff. It was the dirty part of the job that you just had to do that I never liked. So now pretty much everything is off the field. So yeah, I don't mind walking away. It was time. I had my run. It was good. Not bitter. Nothing. I don't have any. Nothing negative. It was just time. So,
well,
yeah, I'm good.
Did you know that
I will enjoy the game from afar. I did. I went to several spring training games. I probably went to 10 games. Went to some college games while they were down there. Also, Michigan was there. I saw Torkelson once. Just different. Vanderbilt played Michigan one game. So yeah, I'm still around the game, but just I don't have to work in it. That's okay.
Well, I hate to tell you this, Tony, but all my sources in Detroit for beat writers are drying up. Lynn Henning moved to Georgia, okay, but he does freelance from a distance. Tom Gage retired, although he wrote a book on Mickey Lolich.
Yep.
Yeah, Anthony Fenich's role has been drastically reduced. So, if indeed Pat Caputo
is not going to be many people. Well, Caputo, he's gone from Oakland Press. He had to take the buyout.
Right.
But he's still doing the radio. He's doing the radio thing.
Is he? Yeah.
So he's still,
my source
he's still around.
Well,
he still has one TV thing too, I believe.
Yeah. So
last time I talked to him, but,
yeah, my sources.
He's a workaholic, so he'll never stop doing it. So.
Oh yeah, no, I know. Yep. I've come in contact with Pat a few times, and but my source.
I've known him even longer than I've known you. I've known him my whole life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, our dad. Good story. Small world. Our dads were really good friends, and my dad worked for his dad. So, yeah, I knew him when we used to hang out when the families would go out together. So the parents would go out, and then they'd leave me and Pat, and we'd sit there and play nurse basketball or whatever else we could do. Yeah, so we go back to when we were like not even 10 years old, less than 10.
Yeah, well,
so I've known him his whole life. He's almost like a cousin to me, really. Sort of feels like a cousin.
Well, the one guy we're leaving out of this discussion is George Eichhorn. Without him, I wouldn't even be in this business. And that's when we finally met over at his wedding a while back. So, one of these days we'll have to get a broadcast, Tony, with you and I and George on there. I think that'd be pretty good, right?
There you go.
And I'm working.
That would be a fly on the wall for that.
I'm working on a few other ones that
would be great.
But, so I don't know, Tony. Hate to tell you this, all my beat writers are drying up because they're all taking buyouts. But
right.
You know what? It doesn't make any difference.
It's going to be reduced. The fewer and fewer people doing it. There already are. But I think even a couple more, won't travel anymore. Players have been wanting to restrict media access anyway. This has been going on for probably the last 3, 4, 5 years now. And now there's no way they're going to let them in the clubhouse if they play this year. And there'll be serious restrictions on it next year. So, the media's role is going to be reduced, except TV. I'm talking about print media.
Right.
TV always gets their way because they're paying, they're paying the freight. So it's not going to be balanced and fair media. It's going to be Homer media. That's what it's turning. This will turn it basically almost all into that.
Well, you brought up an interesting point, Tony. This year, I believe that the announcers are not going to be traveling with the team. They'll be doing a remote broadcast from home.
I've read some of that. Yeah, I know Oakland was one because the Oakland radio broadcaster is a friend of mine, Vince Cotroneo. Yeah. I saw they're not going to travel. I'm sure many others won't.
Well, the Tigers won't either.
Play. But this is when we thought we were going to play. Yeah.
Right.
So, I could see that. It's another way to save costs either for the radio station or the club.
Yeah, the Tigers actually are not.
Happen.
Yeah, the Tigers aren't doing it. I get releases, though. Thankfully, I'm able to get media press releases with the people I do know, so they keep us in the loop here. So it's amazing, Tony. I guess when we summarize this entire broadcast as a whole, I look at what we've accomplished during the course of this broadcast as one. Okay, is baseball in trouble? And evidently, I think we can all come to a consensus. That question is yes. And, of course, it's great for us to be able to talk about our days covering minor league baseball and what the future holds for the sport. So what do you think, as we put a wrap on this thing, what the future for the sport looks like?
Well, it's not the end of the world. We've had these things before. There's been many strikes. These are extenuating circumstances. I'm going to go with what I said earlier. This is an anomaly season. They're arguing about something that's only involved with this season in particular. They'll have all next season to work their way through the next collective bargaining agreement, and they got to get that right. They got to get past the differences and realize, if they don't, they're going to lose billions of revenue every year and lots of fans. But, it doesn't mean the game's going away. I don't think it's going away. I think it might have a lesser place in the sports world, which I've already thought that anyway, because I told you, we just talked about the demographics. Right. The baseball fan, in 20 years, a lot of current baseball fans will be dead. So, and the younger generation, 30, millennial and under, 30 and under, they're just not as big of fans. There's so many other things that are, things are splintered into a lot of areas, which is fine. Things change. There's no boxing anymore. There's hardly any horse racing anymore. These things went away. Those used to be like the two biggest things in baseball. So times change, but I don't think baseball will be dead. It's just going to be maybe not as big as it used to be. That's all. All right. And I think they'll go to. Here's one way to get some revenue, but they could add a couple teams. And I think they will. It's 30. They want to get to 32 anyway, just to balance everything out. Make like eight 14 divisions or 4 18 divisions, whatever they want to divide it up regionally, and then because you get the expansion fee money from each franchise. Yeah, who knows what they'll charge? Probably charge like half $1 billion.
We've talked about this
franchise now. So that's the way to add some teams, to add some interest in a couple of new cities, and they could get some revenue that way too. Well, so I can see that happening, and maybe by this next collective bargaining agreement, maybe that'll be part of it. I don't know. We'll see.
Two more questions that came to mind as you were mentioning that. Number one, I know I was working for the Gastonia Rangers in 1987. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah, we talked about that squad.
Yeah, right.
Major league players on that low Class A team. Amazing.
Isn't it? Sosa, Gonzalez, Palmer. I know David flips out every time he hears that, right? I worked in administration.
No, it doesn't do well for the Rangers organization. Well, that was one of Sandy Johnson and Omar Manaya's great drafts, and they had signed all those kids out of Puerto Rico that they didn't even draft them. There was no draft in Puerto Rico then. They just signed them. And they put together through the draft and then through free agent signings in Puerto Rico and elsewhere, Latin America. Yeah, they had some great players. Dean Palmer, Wayne Rosenthal. Was Helling on that team?
Yeah.
Rick Helling? He was another number one pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they just had a ton of guys. Who's that other middle infielder? I forgot his name.
I don't remember. I do know
Ray Sanchez.
Yeah.
I think it was Ray. Those are all Sandy Johnson and Omar Minaya guys.
I was working for a Bible salesman.
Director Omar was this top Latin American guy, and they had a bunch of they're really good scouts, and they kicked ass. They drafted signed some great guys.
I was working for a Bible salesman named Jack Farnsworth, and he talked to Sandy Johnson a lot. And he was actually saying, "You got to send me the best players indeed," even though we lost 90-some games.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him.
Did you?
Yep. He took me on a trip. We did a scouting thing, and that was the year that they drafted Rick Helling. We went and saw him. It was fun. He's fun. I learned a lot.
Well,
I don't remember what year it was.
You touched on
1990, maybe?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
We went and saw Rick Helling pitch and started one of his college games. Yeah, it was fun.
You talked about expansion. Give me two teams, cities that would be high up on your expansion list before we wrap up the broadcast, and David can give some closing thoughts.
Vegas and Charlotte.
Vegas and Charlotte. Okay. You don't see any Montreal Expos down the road?
I think they had their chance, and they don't want to build a stadium.
Right. Okay. So Vegas.
I think Vegas is the one place where they can get a stadium built because if they would get a partnership with, there'd be enough public funding, like from the casinos and whatever. Just how they got this other the football stadium built. That thing's going to be a big hit. That's a sports town. And I know it's only 2.5 million people, but it's a unique place. The hockey team, as soon as they got that team, every ticket was sold.
Yeah.
Quickly. Not only that, T-Mobile Arena had seats, I don't know, 10, 12, 15,000. All the seats are scalped, too. People are paying $200, $300, $400 to go to one hockey game there. That's how big the interest is. And the reason is because, I don't want to say everybody, but there's a vast majority of people there. Hey, guess why they're there? They like to bet on sports. So they're sports fans, and they go to the games, and they bet on the games, and they have a huge interest. It's a sports market like none other, really. That's why people move there and live there. They want to be sports gamblers, and a lot of them do. So that's why the football team, all those teams are sold out already, man. So I think baseball would succeed there, even though it's different. You don't get as many summer tourists there as you do for a football weekend, let's say. But I think it could work.
Yeah.
Certainly better than Oakland. Oakland's got to go. And I don't know about Tampa's long term, but yeah, I would see Charlotte. I might have said Portland, but there's so much civil unrest there. I don't think any major league team's going to try to go into a downtown stadium there with all the trouble that they're having. We're going to see how that kind of thing plays out. But there's two right there. Louisville's got a great minor league park too, by the way. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think it could happen.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the Tampa situation is a long way from being resolved because their lease doesn't expire until 2027. I know there's talk about Montreal, so we don't know. And I know Oakland's working on it.
I left them out because I'm not sure where. I think they would still like to keep them there, but I don't know. They got to come up with a better solution. They're stuck there. Yeah, was it 2027?
Yeah, it is.
That crappy park that they got there.
Oh, God, Tropicana feels awful.
Bad spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, I think Oakland's working toward trying to get a new stadium, but we'll dedicate another show with that. I was just curious to see what. But you feel Vegas and Charlotte are ideal. Yeah, in fact, Mark.
Those are my two favorites. There's a few others, but yeah, that would be my two.
You remember Mark Littell, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a regular guest on the show. David and I and everybody that has him on, he's our baseball analyst. And David, what do you think of Mark Littell in your own words?
Nutty buddy.
Yeah, nutty buddy. Yeah, he endorses Charlotte as well, and Rick Curdy got a kick out of that.
Actually, he endorses Charlotte, and I know Rick Curdy's going to listen to this broadcast, and he's going to jump up and down and do jumping jacks because we just talked about his team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. Well, that's all right. So, well, I mean, I got to tell you, it's been an incredible broadcast tonight. Tony and I always love to reminisce about our Fort Lauderdale days and all the different players that we came up with through the years. And, of course, I learned a lot of my great lessons from Tony, my mentor. I'm not afraid to mention that on national radio and broadcast. Folks, you're listening to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Manmouth, along with David Levin and Tony DeMarico, a longtime baseball writer for a lot of different places. I know Tony, you know, I always seem to learn a lot from you no matter what we do, and I always look forward to seeing you when I get out to Arizona for sure. So with that said, okay, Tony, do you want to let people know how
always
they can...
a pleasure, man, always.
Would you like to let our audience know how they can get a hold of you if you want them to?
I'm retired, man.
He's retired. Huh?
I have a Twitter account. I don't post anything anymore. I really haven't posted much since I stopped writing a year ago. So it's DeMarco Ball. That's DeMarco Ball. But honestly, I haven't posted probably a couple things in the spring. That's probably the last time. So, yeah, I'm really not writing. I'm happily retired. I'm enjoying myself. It's all good.
Well, and you got a beautiful daughter as well. I mean, I know your daughter, Alex, she's a sweetheart. So, unbelievable. Like I said, I love the history that we have together, and I'm glad that we've been longtime friends. And I've always viewed you as an extended part of my family, Tony. That comes from my mind, but especially my heart. And I know David was looking forward to meeting you, and obviously we got that done. So with that said, since you don't have a whole lot for people to find you at, I know Levin does. Go ahead, David.
Okay, well, first of all, I really enjoyed this tonight, guys. Being able to listen to you guys reminisce about the days gone by. We talked about baseball as it is now. This was a really good show, and I'm glad you all allowed me to be part of it. I can be found on fansided.com. I cover the Miami Marlins for Marlin Maniac. I also cover the Jacksonville Jaguars for Black and Teal. On Twitter, I can be found at DM719907. And as you all know, I am the co-host here with Scott on 108 Stitches.
All right, well, Tony, you ready for all my extensive stuff? Once upon a time, nobody knew anything about me. Now we
Brace
have
yourself, Mildred.
What's that?
Brace yourself. He's going to give you the whole spiel.
Oh, yeah, why not? Well, I don't know about that. I'll give you the whole kit and caboodle. All right, so meanwhile, you can follow us on @Tribune South. Facebook, you can like South Florida Tribune. Instagram, I've graduated that, Tony. South Florida Tribune. Have a YouTube channel should you have a chance to look at the video I put on Facebook, for which was intended about Lockhart Stadium and the old Fort Lauderdale Stadium. You'll see that was intended. And that's also on South Florida Tribune. The website, www.southfloridatribune.com. I have an online publication where we get content sent to us. And we also have staff writers, and these broadcasts go up there as well. The email address is southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth, and our broadcast here on WSAN Network consists of the Sports Exchange. I know Tony's appeared on the Sports Exchange, and of course I had it with George Eichhorn many years ago in the Detroit area. The South Florida Tribune podcast is geared for non-sports or perhaps local sports. And yes, folks, you're listening to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Real and rare, we had a great broadcast on Black Lives Matter on Friday night with Xavier McKnight. We do a fantasy football show with myself and Ryan Skolrud. Another show is Motorman and Rude Dog. And our latest show to the network is No Limits. You can find these broadcasts, once again, on southfloridatribune.com or wherever you get your podcasts. So, on behalf of Tony DeMarico and David Levin, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, hoping that you enjoyed this broadcast. All we ask you to do is try to be safe out there. Don't take that pandemic lightly. And Also, let's make sure that we try to stay safe, because I know there's a lot of racial injustices out there, but we have to come together as a country to get through all these situations. So, Tony, once again, thank you for being on the broadcast, and David, good job as usual. So,
My pleasure.
meanwhile, folks, enjoy it. Have a great night, and Tony, we look forward to bringing you on at some point down the road, hopefully soon enough, with maybe some more positive developments. All right, Tony?
All right, man. Take care.
All right, thanks. Good night, everybody.
Bye.